Hello and welcome to Talkin' Country. I'm your host, Bob Robbins. I can hardly believe it, but we've just watched the last episode of the Ken Burns documentary, Country Music. This episode discussed what is called the new traditionalist. Joining me to talk about that tonight are Charlie White, a professional guitar musician, Preston Palmer. Preston's a musician and owner of Palmer Music Company. Charles Hames, a veteran country music journalist and historian. And John Rainey, chief engineer at Rainey Recording Studio. Well, fellas, welcome back. You know, I don't know about y'all, but what impressed me about this show tonight is the fact that it still goes back to the very first show that we saw.
Oh, absolutely. This episode began with Dolly singing Mule Skinner Blues.
Exactly.
That's a Jimmy Rogers song, and it ended with a picture of Mother Maybelle.
Bob, what impressed me about what Ken has done with that is the amount of variations in country music over the years. But it's been primarily, I think it's the people that, you know, each person might have a sound that they gravitate towards, but it all kind of goes back to the same initial beginnings.
It's kind of like they said, don't forget from where you came.
That's right.
And where you're going. It's always that circle. It always goes around and comes back around.
Of course, you were playing all this stuff, and you know how in the late 70s, early 80s, how it got kind of popish, and that's really where this thing picks up. And then here comes, you know, the Judds and Randy Travis, Ricky Skaggs, George Strait.
Well, like I said, that circle always seems to come around, and, you know, a lot of folks have kept country music country. I mean, think about Dwight Yoakam, for an example.
Absolutely.
He was on the show a lot tonight. Garth Brooks. Everything Garth did, especially early, was all country music. Although he wanted to do some of the other stuff. He tried that. What was it, Kane? That didn't work
Chris
so good
Kane.
for him.
Chris
Yeah,
Kane.
that's right. Yeah.
He changed that up pretty quick. But seriously, he loves country music, still does, always will. And that's just a couple of them from the show tonight. We're going to talk about all of them. And anything y'all have got. Ricky Skaggs. Ricky came in there strong for us, too.
Yeah, he really did, yeah.
Yes. And, of course, Ricky has always been there to play the bluegrass.
I like the thing that he did with talking about Bill Monroe's final days and his concerns with the future of bluegrass music, and how Ricky kind of tried to put his mind at rest about that.
Johnny Cash. Man, what a force he was.
Yeah.
And, you know, it kind of broke my heart to sit there and watch toward the end how it all, but then at the very end, how he came back again.
I really
Absolutely.
liked the way Roseanne talked about her dad. That was,
I do
that
too,
was
'cause
really emotional.
They had some pretty serious problems
Yeah.
through life, and him on the road all the time, playing shows here, there, and everywhere. But at least she is big enough, and he was big enough to talk about it and face it. And
Be so kind of honest about it. Seemed
exactly.
Like.
It's always interesting to know that people can and do and will work things out.
Yes.
And the music that they sang, of course, helped do that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest songs that he ever had, I Still Miss Someone,
Sure.
made it all hit with Roseanne. You know, like Charles said, I was blessed through this era of music because I've been around it from then to now, and some of the neatest and nicest people that I've been able to meet and call them my friends and end up making friends with them. Your boss for one of them,
Sure.
Wynonna. Always a fun lady to be around and be able to sit down and talk to. It's just a special time in this country boy's life to go back and see all of this put together. I think Mr. Burns, it's unreal.
What has stood out to you on this, Preston?
It's interesting because this is the era that I fell in love with music. I mean, I was a kid watching you, listening to you on the radio, and I remember getting a Clint Black cassette tape at a gas station in B Branch, and taking it home and listening to it, and, you know, shooting the basketball. And then that was the first time I'd really listened to country. I grew up listening to the Beatles with my parents and that sort of thing. But Clint Black got me going, and then I started listening to Kissin', and man, when Garth Brooks came along, that just changed my changed my life. I mean, I was singing Garth Brooks songs in the lunch line in the 3rd grade, getting made fun of by girls because I was trying to sing like him, emulate his voice, and that I just loved watching all that, kind of getting to go down memory lane.
A lot of those entertainers in that period of time, and this period of time that we've watched tonight, they all kind of grew up like we all did, with little poor, just having to work for a living and all. And of course, Ricky Skaggs, when he hit with Uncle Pen, I didn't realize until tonight when we were watching that show that Uncle Pen was the first #1 bluegrass song.
Right.
I never realized that.
And also at that time, videos were a huge part of making the song successful.
Starting to come in.
So that was an early kind of huge country music video. I remember that was being played constantly. You couldn't turn on the video channels without seeing it. And it crossed over into like VH1 and stuff back then. So it was a big deal.
John, music sales. Gosh. Man, they went up
through the roof
like the rocket, didn't they?
Yeah.
And still are.
That's
impressive too.
Gosh, they upped the manufacturing. The CDs, they could press them so quick, and which fueled the sales. They could produce it so quickly, and get it out there to the market.
When you get one of these artists in your studio, and you've done several of them, how long does it take for one to walk in there and sit down, stand up, whatever they do when they record their songs, to drop a track and get the processes of their album
there's
working?
Probably no two ever the same. Every artist is different, and with every different flavor of music that we're recording. And really, I've always thought that the best producers were the ones that had the best phone book, that would hire the right players for the right job, and then sit back and let the magic happen, and be there to capture that moment of sound, and really get those performances that come through and touch people, But that's what I've always tried to do. That's always been my goal.
You hear it through, you're talking about the musicians. I've always heard how Elvis Presley, for an example, when he had a session, he hired the best pickers, all of them, and had them sitting in the studio. If he just needed one lick, for an example, he'd call them in to play. They got to be pretty powerful. Huh?
Oh, yeah. Sit down and just knock it out.
You ever had that happen in your studio?
Oh, yeah. Country music is kind of produced a little different than say rock records were produced. A lot of times they actually wrote the music in the studio on the rock records,
right.
And of course it would take a long time, because they would have to work all that out. A lot of times in country music it's more pre-production. You get together and you make sure that the songs are written well. It's good and clear and concise, and it all matches up to the melody, and then you go out and you hire these key people to come in and really make it happen. So it's kind of a different production scheme, on those. And a lot of that boils down to budget too,
That's what helps make the sales go up.
Yeah, that's that, exactly. Charlie can kind of attest to that. He's been in the recording business for years as well. He had a studio in Nashville, and he's worked with me for several years now in mine, and just a pleasure to work with his talent that he brings to the table.
Well, you're very kind to say that, John.
30 years of experience, huh?
You want to get good at something eventually. John makes it easy.
We were talking about George Strait, and when George came along and first big record, over 1 million records sold. That was a lot of records.
That's a lot of records.
And then he goes, and Charlie, pick up there.
Well, I think we need to talk about Reba McEntire. She started out traditional country, later kind of pushed the envelope some, of course. Won CMA Female Vocalist of the Year 4 years in a row.
But it's like she said, too, she always wanted her music to be country music. She wanted a fiddle, she wanted a guitar, she wanted the music instruments that had made country music what it was, and she kept it that way. Another fellow that came along and really added a lot to country music, and everybody talks about him, was my friend Randy Travis.
Can't imagine country music without him.
Can't either.
Garth Brooks and all those guys knocked the door down, especially Garth, but I'm going to tell you, Randy set the table for that. Got songs like 1982 and Digging Up Bones, and On the Other Hand. You'd like to have one of those in a career.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
were all
Debut
like super
record.
country. Right.
You could hear all those influences coming out too. You know, Lefty Frizzell, Merle Haggard. You know, all these different
George Jones,
and you know, you could really hear all that tradition in his voice and the way he approached it, the way he sang it.
You know, back to Reba McEntire and the female side, and everybody talks about country music. The female artists, there ain't a lot of them, you know, that hit as big as Reba did.
No.
Miss Kitty Wells and all those people, but Reba stayed true to her type of music, and that was country.
Once she came over to MCA, you know, I guess at that time Sylvia and Janie Fricke and Juice Newton were having hits, but boy, when Reba came on, I mean,
Really
it changed everything.
Yeah, it did. Talk about somebody you know a lot now, Naomi, Wynonna.
Yeah.
Of course, you're on the road with Wynonna playing, and
Sure.
tell us about her.
Oh, she's, you know, I live here in Arkansas, and I'm very aware that there's a lot of great guitar players in Nashville, so I've been very thankful that they go to the extra trouble to get me out of Arkansas to go on the road. To stand next to her and hear her sing some of those songs that you've heard so many times, it never gets old.
I know, looking at this program tonight, a lot of tears rolled down my face. You know, like watching Vince Gill sing
Sure.
Go Rest High on the Mountain, which is a song that he started for Keith Whitley.
Right.
Put it up for 4 years and then came back and finished it for his brother.
Get choked up easy on that stuff.
And that's right.
Especially to hear him give the explanation of it.
Exactly, and to understand why.
Yeah.
Well, and then Kathy Mattea too. Where Have You Been?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
Yeah.
what a story.
Yes.
Sure.
And that's what country music is all about.
It
You know,
is,
and it always has been, and I really think that it always will. And of course, you get to teach a lot of people how to play. What when they start learning to play, what do they sit there and pick?
Well, it's a lot of times we start off with country. It's like you said, 3 chords and the truth. So I can teach them those 3 chords, and then we're kind of off to the races. One of my students that you've worked with, that's kind of what we did. You know, you get going on G, C, and D, or G, C, and A minor and D, or whatever, and
Sure.
you're playing, you know, Garth Brooks songs. You can do so much, Hank Williams Sr. with just easy guitar parts. But it's so cool for me with my kids that I work with, especially when they bring me, a song on their phone and it's Johnny Cash, you know, Hurt, you know, or whatever, and just seeing how a guy that was around for so long, and these kids have no idea who he is, but they love that song. So I get to go back and expose them to all the stuff he did, you know, years and years ago, and turn them onto that whole country music thing. It's awesome.
Like we said, it always comes back around. You know, it starts back at the roots. You know, and then it gets back to, you know, where we're at right now.
Those memories last forever too, because people think, you know, when I first heard that, I remember, and then learning to play it and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
1984, that was a big year for country music. A lot of big hits that came out of there. The record sales were soaring, like we were talking about a minute ago, and we'll continue to talk about. But so many artists. Who were some of your favorite artists that came along, Charles?
I think the Judds were very important, of course. Randy Travis is absolutely huge, and of course you lead up to Garth. All those were important, though. I tell you why I think they all were really good. They were traditionalists, but they were individualists also, and they brought their own unique style in there, and the way they wanted things done. And I thought, and we can't overlook the great producers and record executives that realized the direction country music needed to go, like Joe Gelani, Alan Reynolds. They were pointed out in that.
Exactly.
Very important.
Well, they had their directions and they stuck to them. The artist had theirs. Speaking of a hardhead, of course, we touched on Dwight Yoakam, but Dwight really, if he hadn't have stuck to his,
Right.
it
It wouldn't have happened for him.
exactly,
Yeah.
it never would have happened for him. So
That was a big one for me. Ricky Skaggs, Dwight Yoakam. and the Judds stuff, the acoustic-based Judds stuff was so much of that stuff starts with an acoustic guitar and a singer anyway, and a great song. So that's what got me going on it.
Well, as we get down toward the end of the show and we're there, I'd like to just go ahead and start with you and find out, your heart and your feelings for country music.
When I was growing up, that's the stuff that I heard around. When I first started playing, those were the jobs that you got. Were playing in VFW clubs and stuff like that, and that's what people wanted to hear was country music. So,
how about you, the other guitar picker in the house tonight?
It's kind of given me everything that I do now. Everything I do is kind of revolves around music, and that era, like I said, when I was a kid, that was what was going on, and that's what fired me up about the acoustic guitar, and learning how to play those songs, led me to playing around in, bars and country clubs or whatever. It's how I met my wife, so it's that era of country is really, that's the reason that I got into music.
John, you've been recording this stuff for a lot of years.
I was so fortunate growing up with my grandfather, Wayne Rainey, who was pretty big in the business himself. I got to see a lot of these performers and artists that come through and got to know them, a little bit. And then, gosh, when I'd see them on TV or something, I would just be so excited. It's like, wow, he and I played cards. And, it was just such a great experience. It gave me the music bug early on. I knew I was going to do something in this industry, and I'm so glad that it was country music.
Charles?
I've been very fortunate to get to be a journalist over 25 years and cover this. I don't think there's any genre of music that can just reach into your chest and stir all those emotions like country can. And I've loved this documentary, from the jokes of Minnie Pearl to Roy Acuff, right on through all the stuff the long-haired nitty-gritty dirt band coming in and rattling the cage but being so welcoming to the veterans, right on up to what we saw today. I love all of it.
I do too. And like was said, it's my life. It's been my life and always will be. I sat and watched with lots of love in my heart for people that I've been able to sit in an audience and watch, or stand at the corner of a stage and watch, and even had the honor and privilege of bringing them on stage and introducing them to the crowd of people that I love the most, and that's the folks that love country music with me. I think the song "I Still Miss Someone" was probably what wrapped it up the best for me tonight, because I always will miss someone. People like Merle Haggard, people like all of the great artists, Kitty Wells, all of the great people that made my music what it is today. And I love playing it every day and always look forward to the next morning. Charles, I know you're going to take us out of here tonight and take us home. Thank y'all again for watching. We've enjoyed very much of being able to talk country with you. God bless you all. Arkansas has a rich country music heritage, as a lot of us know. Here are a couple of Arkansans who are making moves in the industry: Aaron Enderlin and Ben Dickey.
It just seems like music's really in the fiber of people in Arkansas. My grandparents were really big into country music, and so For one, my grandpa had a record collection, and I watched a lot of music videos and country music documentaries and things with my grandma, and really got into the characters and just the stories in country music, the sounds. When I was 10, I started writing songs and taking them into my music class to share. I would take those songs in and play for my class, and then I started taking guitar and learning more and writing. I love the experience of music. I think Johnny Cash is pretty amazing. He's been a big influence on my music. He wasn't afraid to tell a story that didn't get all wrapped up with a bow at the end of it, and I like that. I think Arkansas is a place that music's kind of a way of life. It just seems like music's really in the fiber of people in Arkansas. Naturally, I'm kind of introverted, and music has been very easy for me to talk to people and meet people, because we already have something to talk about, something in common. When I'm standing up there and I'm playing music and I see somebody smiling or singing along, and I know that I'm helping taking them some other place for 3 minutes, that's what makes me fall in love with music all over again.
Every part of being inside of the universe is magic. By my experience from being alive, I perceive it all as music. My name's Ben Dickey. I was born right here in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1977. I've been a lover of music and an ambitious player of music ever since I can remember. I think I saw and learned through people around me about the connections between blues music, folk music, country music, R&B music, and that the conduits being the artists who and their influences. I learned that that nucleus of that place was all sorts of things. But I'm still wanting you. People ask me how to describe my music. I don't like those words very well because they don't stand for what I'm trying to do. Songs are funny things because they need explanation. When you watch them, the explanation doesn't do anything for you. The song is doing something for you. And so when I'm performing music, I'm trying to be hypnotized in myself where I don't know what's going to happen. Well, Blaze Foley was born Michael David Fuller, in Malvern, Arkansas, and he went on to be an outlaw country poet, singer. We made a movie about him, and I played Blaze, and I got to learn a lot more about Blaze Foley and have a very intimate psychedelic experience of making this movie that was a love letter to all the songwriters and creative suffering folks in the world. What's going to be in the next few years of Ben Dickey's life? Hopefully I'll be here. Knock on wood. I like gypsy life, you know. We're traveling in a Chevy Capital Express right now, and it's great. But we do well. We do well on the road and traveling. So I foresee traveling. I hope to be traveling and playing music.